My brother said Disney World was his thank you gift to me. At check-in, I found out my vacation came with a connected room, 3 of his kids assigned to sleep with me, and a reservation note that said, Sophie will supervise minors during adult dining. When I asked why my name was listed like that, my sister-in-law laughed in the resort lobby and said, "You don't have kids, Soph. This is basically still a vacation for you." My brother told me to stop embarrassing him because they had paid for everything. What he didn't know was that the front desk could print the reservation notes, the travel coordinator could see the emails, and by the time he tried to send me an $11,284 bill for my share, I already had every receipt. Before I explain how we got there, tell me honestly what you would have done if your own family flew you to Disney World, smiled in your face, and then handed you a babysitting schedule like it was a souvenir. My name is Sophie. I'm 29. I work as a dental office manager in Ohio, which basically means I spend all day fixing schedules, calming people down, and making sure adults follow through on things they already agreed to. So maybe that's why my family decided I was the one who could always handle it. I'm single. I don't have kids. I have a small apartment, a reliable car, and a job where I'm usually off by 5:30. In my family, that somehow meant I was available. Available to pick up prescriptions. Available to run to Target because somebody forgot pull-ups. Available to watch someone's dog. Available to babysit for an hour, which always turned into dinner, bedtime, dishes, and one more text from my sister-in-law Melissa saying, "Can you just stay until we're almost home?" My older brother Brandon is 34. We used to be close. When we were kids, he taught me how to ride a bike, and once scared off a boy who kept snapping my bra strap in middle school. I thought he was annoying, but I also thought he was safe. Then, adulthood happened, and Brandon became the kind of man who called himself overwhelmed while handing his responsibilities to whichever woman was closest. He and Melissa have 5 kids. Ava is 10, Miles is 8, the twins Harper and Hallie are 6, and Theo is 4. I love those kids. That part matters. This was never about me not loving my nieces and nephews. Ava sends me voice notes about books she's reading. Miles thinks I'm cool because I let him explain Minecraft for 40 minutes without interrupting. The twins call me Aunt Soap because Harper couldn't say Sophie when she was little. Theo thinks my name is mine because he used to grab my hand and yell it whenever I walked into their house. I loved them. I hated that my family used that love like a key. For years, Brandon and Melissa had a pattern. A sitter canceled. Could I come over? Melissa had a migraine. Could I take the kids to the park? Brandon got stuck at work. Could I handle dinner? I would say, I can come for 2 hours, and Melissa would go, perfect, you're a lifesaver. Then text at hour 3. We're just sitting down. You're okay, right? Load. If I said no, Brandon got disappointed in that quiet way that made me feel like I had failed some invisible family test. One Saturday, the year before the Disney trip, I watched all 5 kids from noon until almost 11 because Brandon said he and Melissa had a church marriage workshop. Ava later told me they went to Topgolf with 2 other couples. I didn't confront him. I should have. Instead, I drove home with goldfish crackers smashed into my jeans and told myself they were tired parents and I needed to be understanding. That was my problem. I kept translating selfish behavior into exhaustion because it was easier than admitting my brother was using me. The other thing nobody talked about was money. Brandon and Melissa were always barely staying afloat, according to my mom. They had 5 kids, 1 income that changed depending on Brandon's overtime, and a house full of expenses. Except they didn't own their house. They rented a duplex from our Aunt Paula. And by rented, I mean Paula had been giving them a family discount for almost 3 years. Everyone knew it. Brandon called it temporary help. Melissa called it family supporting family. Paula called it until they get back on their feet. They never got back on their feet. They just got more comfortable standing on everyone else's. 3 months before the trip, Brandon called me on a Tuesday night. I was folding laundry on my bed, half watching a cooking show, when his name popped up. I almost didn't answer because I assumed he needed something. Instead, he sounded happy. "Hey, Soph," he said. "Melissa and I were talking, and we want to do something nice for you." I laughed. "What do you need?" "I'm serious," he said. "You've done so much for us. We want to take you to Disney World." I stopped folding. "What?" "Disney," he said. "In June. We're taking the kids, and we want you to come. Our treat." I didn't answer right away. I hadn't been to Disney since I was 12. Our parents took us once, back when Dad was still alive, and I still had this blurry photo of me in mini ears, standing next to Brandon, who looked sunburned and annoyed. "That's a lot," I said. "You deserve a break," Brandon said. "You're always helping everybody else. Let us do this." I hate admitting this, but I teared up after we hung up. Not dramatic crying. Just those stupid little tears that show up when someone finally says the thing you didn't know you needed to hear. "You deserve a break." Melissa texted me 5 minutes later. "You're going to have the best time. No babysitting. We mean it. Aunt Sophie gets to relax." I screenshotted it because I thought it was sweet. That screenshot ended up being the first receipt. For the next few weeks, Brandon handled everything. Flights, resort, park tickets, dining. Every time I asked for confirmation numbers, he brushed me off. "You don't need to stress about logistics," he said. "That's the whole point." That should have bothered me. But Brandon always loved acting like the family project manager, even when Melissa did the actual planning and I did the emergency fixing. The first real warning sign came from my mom. She called me one Sunday and said, "That's really nice of Brandon, isn't it?" "Yeah," I said. I was surprised. "Well," she said, "try not to make things harder for them." I paused with my coffee halfway to my mouth. "What does that mean?" "I just mean traveling with 5 kids is a lot. If they need a little help, don't keep score." "Mom, Brandon said this was a thank you trip." "It is," she said quickly. "Of course it is. Just be gracious." Be gracious was my mother's favorite way of saying, accept whatever happens and make it easier for everybody else. I said, "I'm not going as a babysitter." She laughed too fast. Nobody said that, but something in my stomach tightened. The second warning sign came 2 weeks before the trip. Melissa stopped by my apartment with a Disney tote bag. She called it my starter kit. Inside were mini ears, sunscreen, a portable charger, hand sanitizer, and cooling towels. Cute. Under the towels were 5 laminated cards with the kids' names, allergies, bedtime routines, and Theo's melatonin instructions. I held up Theo's card. "What's this?" Melissa blinked like I had asked what sunscreen was. "Oh, just in case." "In case of what?" "In case you have them for a little bit," she said. "Like if I run to the bathroom or something." "You need laminated bedtime cards for bathroom breaks?" Her face changed for half a second. Not guilty, exactly. More annoyed that I had noticed. Then she smiled. "Sophie, you're organized. I thought you'd appreciate it." I wanted to push harder, but Harper and Hallie were waving from Melissa's minivan, and Theo was crying because he wanted to come inside. Melissa used the chaos like a smoke bomb. "We're late for swim," she said. "Love you." Then she left. I stood in my doorway holding 5 emergency cards for a vacation where I was supposedly relaxing. I almost texted Brandon right then. Instead, I told myself I was being sensitive. Melissa was just a stressed mom. Laminated cards didn't prove anything. That was the first time I doubted myself. The morning of the flight, Brandon picked me up at 4:45 inches, a rental van that smelled like fruit snacks and coffee. The kids were half asleep. Melissa looked irritated already. Brandon wore a t-shirt that said, "Most expensive day ever," with Mickey ears on it. When I climbed in, Ava scooted over and put her head on my shoulder. Melissa turned around from the front seat and said, "Thank God. You can sit between Theo and the twins on the plane. They listen to you better." I laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. At the airport, Melissa handed me Theo's backpack and said, "He gets carsick, but it's worse on planes. There are wipes in the front pocket." "Melissa," I said carefully. "I thought I was just traveling with you guys." "You are," she said. "We're all helping each other." Brandon kept checking bags and didn't look at me. On the plane, Theo got sick. Poor kid. I cleaned him up while Melissa watched from across the aisle and said, "You're just so much calmer with him." Brandon slept. I should have woken him up and made him switch seats. I didn't. By the time we got to the resort, I was tired, sticky, and wearing a t-shirt with a little applesauce smear near the sleeve. Still, when we walked into the lobby, I felt excited. The kids were bouncing. Ava grabbed my hand. Even I started thinking maybe I had overreacted. Then we got to check in. The front desk cast member smiled and asked for Brandon's ID. She typed for a minute, then said, "Okay, I see 2 connecting rooms, one under Brandon Walker and one under Sophie Walker." I blinked. "My last name is Bennett." Melissa laughed lightly. "They probably just grouped us together." The woman corrected it, but I saw Brandon's jaw tighten. Then she handed us room keys and said, "Rooms 7,284 and 7,286. Connecting door. Sophie, you'll be in 7,286 with 2 queen beds and the pullout." I looked at Brandon. "Who's in my room?" Melissa answered too fast. "Well, the girls might sleep in there, just so everyone has space." "The girls?" "The twins," she said. "Maybe Ava. We'll see." I gave one short laugh. "Wait, I don't have my own room?" Brandon leaned close and lowered his voice. "Can we not do this right now?" "Do what?" "Start." That word hit me hard. Start. Like he had been waiting for me to become difficult. The front desk woman looked back at the screen. "I also have a note here," she said carefully. "Sophie will supervise minors during adult dining reservations." For a second, nobody moved. I said, "What?" Melissa's face flushed. Brandon said, "That's just a note. It doesn't mean anything." The woman looked uncomfortable. "It's attached to the dining schedule, sir." "Ta!" I asked her, "Can you read it again?" Brandon said, "Sophie." Melissa whispered, not quietly enough, "Don't embarrass us." I looked at her. "I'm embarrassing you?" That's when she laughed. In the lobby, in front of the front desk, my nieces, my nephews, and 2 families waiting behind us. "You don't have kids, Soph," she said. "This is basically still a vacation for you." I just stood there. I wish I had some perfect comeback. I didn't. My face got hot. Ava looked confused. Miles stared at the floor. Theo was trying to climb on my suitcase. Brandon took the key cards and said, "We'll talk upstairs." I said, "No. I want to see the note." The front desk woman said she could print a reservation summary if the primary guest approved. Brandon said, "Not necessary." I said, "Then I'm not putting my card down." Melissa's head snapped toward me. "What?" "I'm not putting my card down for incidentals until I understand why I'm listed as childcare." Brandon's voice got low. "You're making everyone uncomfortable." "No," I said. "The note did that." The front desk woman said, "We can skip adding a separate card for now." Brandon's face changed again. That was my first clue that my card mattered more than I understood. Upstairs, my room had 2 queen beds, a pull-out couch, and a basket on the dresser full of kids' pajamas, pull-ups, glow sticks, a white noise machine, and a printed sheet titled Night Routine. Not Sophie's room, childcare station. I picked up the sheet. Aunt Sophie room schedule. Monday, adult dinner. Sophie handles pizza and bedtime. Tuesday, spa morning. Sophie takes kids to pool. Wednesday, fireworks date night. Sophie stays with Theo if he melts down. Thursday, brunch. Sophie brings kids to arcade. I heard Melissa behind me. "Don't look so offended. It's just sleeping." "Why is there a schedule with my name on it?" She sighed. "Because 5 kids need structure. I'm not their nanny." Her smile dropped. "Wow." One word. Like I had slapped her. Brandon came in and shut the door. "Can we all calm down?" I said. "Were you planning to put 3 kids in my room?" He rubbed his forehead. "We paid for the room." "That's not what I asked." Melissa crossed her arms. "You're acting like we shoved you in a closet. It's Disney. You're welcome." I read the schedule out loud again. Brandon grabbed it from my hand. Not violently, but fast enough that I stepped back. He said, "That's a draft." Melissa snapped. "Brandon." I looked between them. "A draft?" He folded the paper. We were figuring things out. Traveling with 5 kids is complicated. "Then why did you tell me no babysitting?" Melissa said, "Because if we said we might need help, you would have made it a whole thing." There it was. Not a misunderstanding. A decision. I asked, "So you lied?" Brandon said, "We didn't lie. We didn't give you every tiny detail because you overreact." Melissa added, "You're here because of us. Remember that." That line stayed with me. The gift was a leash. I should have left right then. But flights were expensive. I was exhausted. The kids were standing in the hallway. Ava had already asked if I was mad at her. So I did what I always did. I swallowed it. I said, "I'll help like a normal aunt. I'll sit with them on rides. I'll hold bags. I'll help if someone gets sick. But I'm not staying behind so you 2 can have a couple's vacation." Brandon said, "Fine." He said it like a person who did not mean it. That night, they tested me. After dinner at a quick service place, Melissa said she needed to run to the gift shop for one thing. Brandon said he'd go with her. They left me at the table with 5 kids and 6 half-finished drinks. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then 35. Theo fell asleep against my arm. Hallie spilled lemonade. Miles asked if his parents were coming back. I texted Melissa, "Where are you?" She replied with a photo of 2 drinks, taking 1 grown-up minute. "You're okay, right?" There was a winky face. I stared at it for a while. Then I opened my banking app. I don't even know why. Maybe because Brandon's face at check-in still bothered me. There was a pending charge from the resort. $750. I hadn't given them my card at the front desk. I clicked the transaction. Pending authorization. Same hotel. I called my card company from the table while Theo slept on me. The representative said the card had been entered during online check-in. I said, "I didn't do that." She asked if I wanted to freeze the card. I looked at the kids. I looked at Melissa's drink photo. "Yes," I said. "Freeze it." That was proof piece 1. When Brandon and Melissa came back 40 minutes later, I didn't say anything in front of the kids. I helped get them upstairs. I brushed Theo's teeth because he was half asleep. I found pajamas. I turned on the white noise machine. Then I knocked on Brandon and Melissa's door. Brandon opened it looking annoyed. "We need to talk." Melissa was sitting on the bed in hotel slippers. I said, "Why was my card already on the reservation?" Brandon blinked. "What are you talking about?" "The resort put a $750 hold on my card." Melissa said, "That's normal." "I didn't give them my card." Brandon sighed. "Maybe from when we booked your flight." "You don't need my credit card to book a flight you said you paid for." He said, "I used the card you gave us for Costco that one time and forgot it saved." That lie was so sloppy, I almost felt embarrassed for him. "I gave you that card 2 years ago for diapers during a snowstorm." "Exactly," he said. "Like that helped." Melissa said, "It was just for incidentals." The hold drops off. "Incidentals for whose room?" Nobody answered. I said, "I froze the card." Melissa sat up. "You what?" I froze it. Brandon's face hardened. "That's going to mess up the reservation." "Then put your card on it." Melissa said, "We were trying to keep things organized." "No," I said. "You were trying to put the kids' room charges under my name." Brandon said, "Listen to yourself. You sound insane." That word almost got me. Insane, dramatic, difficult. Those were the family words, the words they used when they wanted me to stop asking normal questions. I almost apologized. I actually said, "Maybe I'm just tired." Melissa pounced. "You are tired. We all are. Can we not ruin the first night?" I went back to my room and sat on the bathroom floor with the fan on, so the kids wouldn't hear me cry. I wanted to believe I was wrong. Then I looked at Melissa's old text again. "No babysitting. We mean it. Aunt Sophie gets to relax." I looked at the laminated cards, the room schedule, the pending charge, the connected door. That's when I started taking pictures. Every card, every schedule. The basket, the charge, the text, the room number, the wrong last name. I didn't have a plan yet. I just knew I needed receipts. The next morning, Melissa pushed open the connecting door at 7:10 without waiting for me to answer. "Good, you're up," she said. "The kids want pool time before the park." I was still in bed. Ava, Miles, the twins, and Theo were already in swimsuits. I sat up slowly. "Where are you going?" She smiled too brightly. "Spa appointment. Brandon booked it months ago." I said, "No." The room went quiet. Melissa's smile stayed on, but her eyes went mean. "Sophie, don't do this in front of them. I'm not taking 5 kids to the pool by myself. It's a resort pool." "No." Brandon appeared behind her with 2 coffees. "Come on," he said. "It's 2 hours. You said this wasn't a babysitting trip." He looked at the kids, then back at me. "Can you not be selfish for one morning?" Ava's face changed. She understood enough. That hurt worse than the lobby. I said, "I'll go with everyone as a group. I'm not being left alone while you go to the spa." Melissa snapped. "We paid for you to be here." I said, "And now you're saying out loud what the payment was for?" Brandon said, "Fine. We'll cancel it. Happy?" He wanted me to fold. He wanted me to say, "No, don't cancel. I'll do it." I didn't. I said, "Okay." They didn't cancel. They took the kids to the pool for 20 minutes. Then Melissa texted me from downstairs. "Theo is crying for you. Can you come help? Or are you proving a point?" I didn't answer. For the next day and a half, they didn't officially make me babysit. They just kept arranging the trip so the kids naturally ended up attached to me, and then acted shocked when I noticed. If Theo cried, Brandon looked at me first. If the twins fought, Melissa said, "Aunt Sophie, can you use your calm voice?" If Miles got tired, Brandon handed me his backpack without even asking. It wasn't the work that got to me. I had helped with those kids for years. I knew Theo needed extra socks. I knew Harper hated wet sleeves. I knew Ava got quiet when adults were mad. What got to me was how Brandon narrated it. When I said I wanted to ride something alone, he said, "Guess Aunt Sophie needs personal time again." When I bought my own lunch, he said, "Sophie's doing her separate vacation thing." When Ava asked why I wasn't coming back to their room after fireworks, Melissa smiled and said, "'Cause Aunt Sophie has boundaries now." Not in a respectful way. In that soft, fake mom voice people use when they want a child to hear the word selfish without actually saying it. By the second afternoon, I realized they weren't just trying to get free childcare. They were trying to make me look mean for not enjoying it. That was the part that finally made me stop feeling guilty. Because if this had really been a misunderstanding, Brandon would have pulled me aside and said, "I'm sorry, we messed up." Instead, every time I said no, he performed disappointment in front of his kids. He didn't need to yell. He just had to sigh, look at Ava, and say, "Well, I guess plans change." That was his real weapon. Not the schedule, not the connected room, the guilt. And I had been trained to respond to it before I even knew what training was. That afternoon, I went to the front desk. A woman named Kayla helped me. I remember her because she was the first adult on that trip who looked at me like I wasn't crazy. I gave her my ID and asked what card was attached to my room. She typed, then paused. "There is a visa ending in 4,431 attached to room 7286. And mine." I did not authorize that. She chose her words carefully. "It appears it was entered during online check-in by the primary reservation holder. Can it be removed?" "Yes. The primary guest may need to provide another card for room 7286. Please remove it." She did. Then I asked if she could print the reservation summary for my room. She checked my ID again and printed 2 pages. The first page had my corrected name, room number, and guest count. Adults, 1. Children, 3. My room had been booked as 1 adult and 3 children, not me as a guest. Me as the adult responsible for the overflow kids. The second page had notes. Guest Sophie is family childcare contact. Supervises minors during adult dining and spa bookings. Please keep connected rooms. I took a picture of the page. Kayla said quietly, "Do you need guest services or security to help with anything?" That kindness almost broke me. "Not yet," I said. "But maybe later." She wrote down the guest services number and handed it to me. That was my unexpected ally. She didn't fix everything. She just gave me a way to document the truth. When I got back upstairs, Brandon was waiting in the hallway. What did you do? I held up the papers. My room has 3 kids listed in it. He looked at them, then away. It was cheaper that way. And cheaper, not accidental, not easier. Cheaper. Melissa came out of their room with wet hair, which told me they had gone to the spa anyway. She saw the papers and said, "Oh my God, Sophie." I said, "You listed me as childcare. It's booking language. Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because you make everything about being disrespected." "This is disrespect." Brandon stepped closer. "No, this is family logistics." I folded the papers and put them in my bag. "Then you won't mind if I keep the logistics in writing." His face went red. At the park, they punished me in little ways. Melissa told the kids, "Ask Aunt Sophie if she's still mad at us before you ask her to ride with you." Brandon said, "Sophie's buying her own food now because she wants a separate vacation." Melissa took pictures without me in them. Then my mom texted the family group chat. "Heard there's tension already. Please don't ruin this for the kids." I was standing near a trash can holding Theo's bubble wand because Melissa had handed it to me and walked away. I typed, "What did Brandon tell you?" Mom replied, "Just that you're upset about helping." Helping. That word did so much work in my family. I didn't send the screenshots yet. I was scared. Once I sent them, I couldn't pretend this was just a bad vacation. Then my cousin Jenna texted me privately. Jenna lives in Tampa and is Melissa's cousin by marriage, but we always got along at family stuff. Her text said, "Are you okay?" Melissa told the other chat you agreed to be the kid helper and now you're backing out. I sat down on a bench. "What other chat?" She sent a screenshot. Melissa had written, "Sophie begged to come when she heard we were doing Disney, so we told her she could come if she helped with the kids. Now she's acting like we tricked her. Pray for us, lol." Brandon replied, "She gets sensitive about not having kids. We're trying to include her." My mom had sent a heart emoji. I read that line 3 times. She gets sensitive about not having kids. And I don't have kids because I'm single, because life is expensive, because dating has been weird, because I'm not sure yet, not because I'm broken, not because I'm jealous. That was proof piece 3. The fake story. They had already written me as bitter, needy Aunt Sophie before I even got to the airport. Jenna sent another screenshot from 2 months earlier. Melissa, "If Sophie thinks it's a free vacation, she'll come. Once she's there, she won't make a scene in front of the kids." Brandon, "She'll complain, but she'll do it." Mom, "Don't push too hard. She gets stubborn when she feels used." Melissa, "Then we won't use that word." I had to put my phone down. That was the proof scene that changed everything. They knew what it was. They just knew not to call it that. I went back to the room early and called Tara, Melissa's older sister. Tara worked for an independent travel agency and had gotten them some kind of family and friends discount. I didn't expect her to answer. She did. Her voice was careful. "Hey, Sophie." That told me enough. I said, "Did you know they were bringing me as childcare?" Tara sighed. "Melissa said you were helping. I thought you knew." "Did she say it was a thank you trip?" Silence. "Tara." She said both. Tara said, "She said they were paying for you because you were helping with the kids." "That is not what they told me." Tara got quiet again. "There's an email," she said. My whole body went still. "What email?" "The intake form for the discount. Melissa wrote that you were traveling as family childcare support. I asked if you knew." She said yes. "I'm not a nanny." "I know. Can you send it to me?" She hesitated. "I could get in trouble." I said, "They put my credit card on the room and listed 3 kids under my reservation without telling me." Tara's voice changed. "They did what?" 10 minutes later, she forwarded the email chain. Subject: Walker Disney Package Family Support Guest. Melissa had written, "Sophie Bennett is Brandon's sister and will be assisting with childcare during adult meals and spa bookings. Please keep her room connected to ours and assign her as supervising adult for overflow kids if needed. This is a surprise thank you trip, so we are keeping the schedule casual until arrival." Tara had replied, "Just confirming Sophie knows she'll be sharing responsibility for the children?" Melissa replied, "Yes, she knows. She's just sensitive about feeling used. So we're presenting it as a gift. Presenting it as a gift. Not giving me a gift. Presenting it as one." I saved the email as a PDF and forwarded it to myself twice. Then, I stopped responding. Brandon texted, "Where are you?" Then, "Kids are asking for you." Then, "Don't make this a thing." Melissa texted, "We have dinner at 7. You need to be back by 6:30 so we can get ready." I took a screenshot. Then I replied, "I will not be watching the kids tonight. Please make other arrangements." Melissa answered immediately, "You're joking." Me, "No." Brandon, "We prepaid this dinner." Me, "Then go as a family or hire a sitter." Melissa, "You are being unbelievably selfish." Me, "Please keep everything in writing." That last line did something. The chat went quiet. Then Brandon called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "Sophie, this is ridiculous. You came on a family trip and now you're acting like a stranger. We need you tonight. Melissa has been looking forward to this dinner for 6 months." You don't get it because you go home to silence every night. Some of us don't get breaks unless family steps up. I saved it, not because it proved the billing, because it proved the entitlement. My quiet apartment had become evidence that I owed them my time. At 6:15, they came back to the room. The kids were sweaty and overstimulated. Theo was crying. Melissa's makeup was already done, which meant she had gotten ready somewhere else. Brandon was wearing a button-down shirt. Melissa looked at me sitting on the bed in jeans and a t-shirt. Why aren't you ready? For what? To stay with them. I told you no. She turned to Ava. Sweetie, Aunt Sophie doesn't want Mommy and Daddy to have dinner. Ava looked at me. That almost made me fold. She was 10, but she already had that oldest daughter face. The one that listens too much and worries about adult moods. I said gently, Ava, this isn't your fault. I love being with you. But grown-ups aren't supposed to make plans for other grown-ups without asking. Melissa snapped, do not lecture my daughter. Brandon said, you're really doing this? Yes. Melissa's mouth twisted. For someone who wants to be included so badly, you make it really hard. There it was again. Lonely Sophie, jealous Sophie, childless Sophie, desperate to be included. I said, I'm going downstairs. Calm, end, calm, end, calm, 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 end, calm, 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 again. Brandon stepped in front of the door, not blocking me exactly, but close enough. Sophie, stop. I looked at him. Move. Maybe it was my voice. Maybe it was the kids watching. He moved. I went to the lobby and asked for guest services. Kayla saw me and quietly pointed me toward a manager named Denise, who brought me into a small office off the lobby. Nothing dramatic. Just a desk, 2 chairs, a printer, and a bowl of peppermints. That was the authority room. I told Denise I needed my card removed from any reservation, my room separated if possible, and documentation of charges and notes attached to my name. She asked calm questions. Who booked? Who authorized the card? Was I responsible for the minors? Did I consent to being listed that way? I answered carefully. No, 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 no. Denise printed the folio. There was another pending charge, $312.46, merchandise and snacks from earlier that day. Room 7286. My room, I said. I didn't buy that. She looked at the itemized list. Bubble wand, 2 autograph books, cooling fan, Mickey pretzel, popcorn bucket, kids sandals, a princess necklace. Melissa had been charging the kids' stuff to my room. Denise said, we can transfer these to the primary reservation if they belong to the family group. We can also block future room charges from 7286 until billing is clarified. Please do that. While she typed, Brandon and Melissa appeared outside the office glass. Melissa looked furious. Brandon opened the door without knocking. What are you doing? Denise stood. Sir, we're discussing billing authorization with Miss Bennett. Melissa said, she's part of our reservation. Denise said, she is listed on a separate room. Brandon said, that we paid for. I turned to him. Then why are charges going to my card? He looked at Denise, then me. It's a hold. I said, the bubble wand was a hold? Melissa's face changed. Denise looked down at the folio, probably trying not to react. Brandon said, we were going to settle up later. No, you weren't. Melissa said, you're really fighting over snacks for children? No, I said. I'm fighting over you lying. Then Melissa made her biggest mistake. She pointed at me and said, we brought her because she agreed to help with childcare. She knew exactly what this trip was. Denise looked at me. I opened my phone and pulled up Melissa's text. No babysitting. We mean it. Aunt Sophie gets to relax. I turned the screen around. Melissa went quiet. Brandon said, that's out of context. So I opened Tara's email. Family support guest. Assisting with childcare. Presenting it as a gift. I watched Brandon read it. He didn't go pale. What actually happened was he stopped blinking and swallowed hard, like he had dry bread stuck in his throat. Denise said, I'm going to contact the travel coordinator listed on the reservation for billing clarification. Melissa said, no, that's not necessary. Denise smiled politely. It is. She called Tara on speaker. Tara sounded awful. She said, I need to clarify that the family support discount was applied based on information stating Sophie Bennett was aware of and consenting to the childcare arrangement. Melissa snapped, Tara, don't. Tara kept going. If she was not aware, then the package was misrepresented to the agency. Brandon said, misrepresented? Are you serious? Tara said, you told me she was fine with it. Melissa said, because she always helps. This is not some stranger. I said, that's not consent. The room got quiet. That sentence landed harder than I expected. Denise explained that the resort could not require me to supervise children and would not keep my card attached without authorization. Tara said she had to remove the family support discount because the conditions used to apply it were not accurate. Brandon exploded. Over this? Tara said. Over false information on the booking. Melissa started crying, but it was angry crying. So now we can't even afford the trip? There it was. The deeper motive. Not just free babysitting. Money. They had built the whole trip around using me to make it cheaper. Cheaper room setup, cheaper childcare, discount category. My card as overflow, my silence as insurance. I said, then you shouldn't have booked a trip you could only afford by lying to me. Brandon looked at me like he didn't know me. You've changed. I said, no, I'm just not useful right now. Denise printed the updated billing adjustment. Future charges from $7,286 were blocked. My card was removed. Existing disputed charges were moved to Brandon's primary reservation, pending review. If Brandon wanted charging privileges for the children, he needed to attach his card. Then Tara explained the reprice. Without the discount, without me classified as family support, and with the room arrangement corrected, the balance changed. I don't remember every line, but I remember the number, at $4,812.73. Additional cost and transferred charges. Brandon said, put it back. Tara said, I can't. Melissa looked at me. Sophie, please. That was the first soft word she had used since we arrived. For 1 second, I saw the exhausted mother of 5 instead of the woman who had trapped me. I saw the kids upstairs. I saw Brandon teaching me to ride a bike. I almost said, fine, just this once. Then my phone buzzed. Jenna had sent another screenshot. In the other family chat, while Brandon was standing in front of me pretending this could be fixed, Melissa had written, Sophie is having some kind of meltdown at guest services. If this ruins the trip, I'm done protecting her feelings. My mom replied, do what you need to do. The kids come first. Under that, Brandon had written, she won't actually leave. She never does. That was the final twist. They were still writing the fake version while I was in the room. I looked at Brandon. She never does? He froze. I turned my phone around. Melissa stopped crying. For once, neither of them had a sentence ready, so I sent everything to the main family group chat. Melissa's no babysitting text. The room schedule. The reservation notes. The separate group chat where Melissa said I would complain less once I was already there. The email saying they were presenting it as a gift. The folio with charges to my room. The screenshot that said I wouldn't actually leave. Then I typed, this wasn't a gift. It was a work schedule with mouse ears. I am no longer available for childcare, billing, or damage control. I sent it. The message went from delivered to read. Nobody responded for almost 2 minutes. Then my Aunt Paula wrote, Brandon, what the hell? My mom called me immediately. I let it ring. Then she called Brandon. He declined it. Melissa whispered, you are cruel. I said, no, I'm done being convenient. Denise asked if I wanted to keep the room, separate it, or check out. Part of me wanted to fly home. Part of me wanted to disappear. But I had taken PTO, and I was tired of losing things because someone else behaved badly. I asked, can you move me to a non-connecting room? Denise checked. She found a smaller room in a different building. It overlooked a service area and some trees. I loved it. No connected door. No pull-ups on the dresser. No bedtime chart with my name on it. Just one bed, one lamp, one coffee maker, and silence. I paid for that room myself with a different card. Only my room. Only my charges. Nothing else. That night, Brandon and Melissa missed their adult dinner because they couldn't find childcare on short notice. I only know because Brandon texted, dinner is canceled. Hope you're proud. I replied, please stop contacting me unless it's an emergency involving the kids' safety. Then I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and ate chicken tenders alone while watching fireworks from a walkway with a bunch of strangers. I cried a little, not because I regretted it, because fireworks are stupidly beautiful when you're sad. The next morning, the first real consequence showed up in the family group chat. Aunt Paula wrote, I owe Sophie an apology. I believed she was being difficult because that's what I was told. I was wrong. My mom didn't apologize. She texted me privately. I wish you had come to me before embarrassing everyone. I replied, you were in the group chat where they planned it. She didn't answer for hours. Then she wrote, I didn't know about the card. That was as close as she got. I wrote back, you knew enough. Later that day, Ava found me outside a gift shop. I was buying myself a keychain because apparently I was reclaiming Disney one overpriced item at a time. She walked up with Miles behind her and said, are you mad at us? That question hurt worse than anything Melissa had said. I crouched down. No, baby, never at you. Mom said you don't want to help us. I love helping you, I said. I don't like when adults lie to me and make plans without asking. Miles said, Dad said you made the trip cost more. I almost laughed because the audacity had traveled fast. I said, "Your dad made choices. Choices cost money sometimes." Ava nodded like she understood more than she should. Then she hugged me. Melissa saw us and marched over. "Ava, come here." Ava stepped back. Melissa looked at me and said, "Don't confuse my kids." I stood up, then stopped using them to send messages. She opened her mouth, closed it, and walked away. Small payoff. Not enough to fix anything, but enough that I didn't feel invisible. 2 nights after we got home, Brandon called me. I almost didn't answer, but part of me still thought maybe this was the apology. Maybe he had calmed down. Maybe he had looked at the screenshots, looked at his own messages, and finally understood how ugly it all was. That was stupid. The first thing he said was, "I emailed you the breakdown. No hello, no how are you, just the breakdown." I opened my laptop while he stayed on the phone, breathing hard like he was already angry at me for reading too slowly. The email subject line was, "Disney reimbursement, Sophie's share." Attached was a spreadsheet, flights, park ticket, resort room, transferred room charges, lost discount, missed adult dining reservation, emergency childcare quote, emotional inconvenience, which I still can't believe he typed with a straight face. At the bottom, highlighted yellow, was the total, $11,284.19. I stared at it for a second, then said, "You're not seriously sending me an invoice for a gift." Brandon said, "It stopped being a gift when you decided not to act like family." There it was. That sentence was so clean and so ugly that I actually sat back in my chair. I said, "You told me the trip was a thank you. And you went, didn't you?" He said, "You stayed in the hotel room. You used the park ticket. You ate on property. Don't act like you got nothing. And you listed me as childcare without telling me. You were already helping," he snapped. "You always help. That's what families do." "No," I said. "Families ask." He laughed once, sharp and bitter. "You got a Disney room, Sophie. You got a vacation. And now I'm supposed to eat 11 grand because you wanted to prove a point?" I said, "You're supposed to pay the bill you created." He got louder. "Family helps family." "That's funny," I said, "because when I removed my card, you suddenly remembered I was a guest." He went quiet for half a second. Then he said, "You have no idea what it's like to have 5 kids. I know what it's like to be used by 2 adults who have 5 kids. Don't talk about my family like that. I am your family." He didn't answer. That silence did more than any insult could have. Then he said, lower, meaner, "You know what your problem is? You want the fun parts of being Aunt Sophie, but the second it costs you anything, you act like we're abusing you." I looked at the spreadsheet again. At Sophie's share. At the $11,284.19. At the line where he had literally charged me for the discount he lost because Melissa lied on a form. I said, "Send me one more demand for money, and I'll forward the whole invoice to everyone who believed I was being dramatic." He said, "You wouldn't." And I almost laughed, because that was the whole problem. He still thought I wouldn't. So I said, "Check the family chat." Then I hung up. I sent the spreadsheet the $11,284 total, and the line that said, "emotional inconvenience," to the family group chat with one sentence. Brandon is now billing me for the fake gift, the discount they lost by lying, and the childcare I never agreed to provide. Aunt Paula replied first. Not with a paragraph, not with a lecture, just, "Brandon, are you out of your damn mind?" That was when things finally turned. Not because everyone suddenly became good people. They didn't. My mom still tried to say Brandon was under pressure. Melissa still posted vague quotes about being betrayed by people you help. Brandon still told 2 relatives that I weaponized screenshots. But now everyone had seen the invoice. The $11,284 number did what my hurt feelings never could. It made their behavior look expensive. And in my family, that got attention. The part Brandon didn't think about was Aunt Paula. Aunt Paula wasn't just the relative who apologized in the group chat. She also owned the duplex Brandon and Melissa had been renting for almost 3 years at that family discount. And after seeing the Disney invoice, she stopped seeing them as a struggling family trying to breathe. She saw them as 2 adults who could spend thousands on a theme park trip, lie on a travel form, try to charge me for their own consequences, and still claim they were too broke to pay normal rent. 3 days after he sent me the invoice, Aunt Paula sent him an email. She didn't tell me about it first. Jenna did. She sent me a screenshot and wrote, "You did not hear this from me, but he is losing it." The email was formal. Almost too formal for Aunt Paula. "Brandon, after reviewing the recent financial information you shared publicly and the circumstances surrounding the Disney trip, I will no longer be extending the family rent discount on the duplex. Beginning September 1, rent will increase to the current market rate. If that does not work for your household, this email will serve as notice that I will not be renewing the month-to-month rental arrangement beyond the required notice period. Paula." I read it twice, not because it was cruel, because it was clean. No screaming, no revenge speech, no karma is coming. Just consequences in writing. 20 minutes later, Brandon texted me. What did you say to Paula? I didn't answer. Then, Sophie, answer me. Then, we have 5 kids. Does that mean anything to anyone anymore? Then, you're really going to make my family lose our home because you couldn't babysit for one vacation? That text told me everything. Not because I lied. Not because I used your card. Not because I sent you an $11,000 invoice for a gift. Because you couldn't babysit. Even when the consequences were standing right in front of him, he still thought the original problem was my refusal. Aunt Paula told me later that Brandon called her crying. Not quiet crying, angry crying. The kind where the person wants sympathy but keeps insulting you while asking for it. He said, "You can't raise rent on family." Paula said, "Family doesn't send fake invoices to family." He said, "We're already drowning." She said, "Then stop booking vacations you can only afford by lying." Jenna said Melissa posted a vague quote on Facebook that night about people who punish children to win adult arguments. Nobody liked it except my mom. Then Aunt Paula commented, "Children were not punished. Adults were asked to pay their own bills." Melissa deleted the post within 10 minutes. I'm not going to pretend Brandon and Melissa ended up homeless on the street. That's not what happened. This isn't some cartoon revenge story. They had options. They could pay market rent. They could move farther out. They could downsize. They could stop pretending their lifestyle was everyone else's emergency. But they lost the cushion, the hidden discount, the family safety net, the ability to make bad choices and then hand the bill to someone quieter. A month later, my mom called me and said, "Your brother is under a lot of stress." I know. He may have to move. I know. He says this all started with Disney. I said, "No, Mom. This started when everyone taught him that Sophie would always absorb the cost." She didn't answer. For once, I didn't feel the silence for her. Brandon sent one more message the week after Aunt Paula's notice. It said, "I hope proving your point was worth it." I looked at it for a long time. Then I typed, "It was not a point. It was a boundary." I blocked him after that. Not forever, maybe. I don't know. But for now, yes. I didn't cut off the kids. I want that clear. Ava still texts me from her tablet. Miles sends me Lego pictures. The twins still call me Aunt Soap. Theo still yells mine when he sees me on FaceTime. But I don't babysit for Brandon and Melissa now. Not just 2 hours. Not while we run errands. Not because the kids miss you. I see the kids at public places, or when another adult is there. I took Ava to a bookstore. I took Miles to a science museum. I went to the twins' dance recital and brought flowers. I dropped off Theo's birthday gift at my mom's instead of Brandon's house. Melissa says I'm punishing the children. I'm not. I'm refusing to let adults hide behind them. A few weeks ago, my mom hosted Sunday dinner. I almost didn't go, but Ava asked if I would come because she made cupcakes. I went. Brandon and Melissa were there. Melissa barely looked at me. Brandon acted like I was a coworker he disliked but had to share an elevator with. At the end of dinner, my mom started clearing plates and said, "Sophie, can you help get the kids set up with a movie?" It was automatic. She didn't mean it cruelly. That was almost worse. The whole room went still. I looked at my mom, then at Brandon, then at Melissa. I said, "No, thank you." Not angry, not loud, just no. My mom blinked. Melissa gave a tiny scoff. Aunt Paula stood up and said, "I'll help the kids. Sophie, sit down." And I did. I sat there with my half-finished iced tea while someone else carried the invisible thing I had been carrying for years. It felt strange. It felt almost rude. It felt like peace. I still miss the old version of Brandon sometimes, the brother who made me feel protected instead of used. I miss believing my mom would notice when I was tired. I miss being able to love my nieces and nephews without calculating what their parents were going to demand next. But I don't miss the old job. The free babysitter, the extra wallet, the backup adult, the woman with no kids, no husband, no real responsibilities, and therefore no right to say no. That Disney trip taught me something I should have learned years earlier. A gift with strings is not a gift. A family member who lies because they're afraid you'll say no already knows they're doing something wrong. And when people call you selfish for removing your card from a bill you never agreed to pay, they're not mad about your attitude. They're mad they lost access. So tell me, honestly, if your brother and sister-in-law took you to Disney World as a thank you, then listed you as childcare, charged their kids' expenses to your room, and sent you an $11,284 invoice after they got caught, would you have paid anything? Would you have stayed? Or would you have walked out of that lobby the second the front desk read the note? Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been the easy person in your family, the one everyone calls selfish the first time you say no, I really want to hear from you in the comments. And if you want more stories like this from her confession room, please like, subscribe, and stay for the next one.